Joellen Gonder-Spacek, and I was fortunate enough, I feel in many ways honored, to interview for the job, the founding executive director position back in 1994, and worked very closely with Bob Dayton, who was the founding visionary behind Mentor Minnesota, back then Twin Cities 1-to-1, later became the Mentoring Partnership of Minnesota, and now today is Mentor Minnesota.
I have been connected to Mentor Minnesota for honestly close to a decade. I think I first got connected in 2015. And at the time, I had just started as a program coordinator for a really amazing mentoring organization called Boulder Options. I was able to tap into my own passions, which are really about connecting young people to each other, connecting adults to each other, and creating a more vibrant community. Because I had personally benefited from Mentor Minnesota so deeply. Like, I went to Mentor Minnesota for all of my training, all of my technical assistance. I did 2 rounds of technical assistance with Mentor Minnesota before even doing anything else with them. I had benefited from them so deeply on a personal level, and for our agency at Boulder Options, that I jumped at the opportunity to support Mentor Minnesota in the same way.
I joined the Mentor Minnesota team 3 years ago. It allowed me to really braid together different elements of different areas that I'm really passionate about, one being youth development and working in that space, the other community, so really being able to work together in collaboration, and lastly, supporting safe and supportive relationships, which have been a part of my story since I can remember.
I am the founder of the Autism Mentorship Program, which pairs autistic youth with autistic adults for one-to-one supported mentoring. And I fell into this job. I worked in actually television for a very long time and didn't know anything about mentoring except that I wanted to start a mentorship program that hadn't been done before. And it was recommended to me early on by a colleague who worked at the University of Minnesota that I should talk to Mentor Minnesota. I feel like Mentor Minnesota is a leader in reimagining what mentorship is. I attended Untold Legacies, which is a training to look at different ways of decolonizing mentoring, of expanding who's involved in mentoring and the power structure of mentoring. That was awesome and amazing, an incredible cohort of people that Mentor Minnesota put together. And I know, and I'm looking forward to working with the mental health training that has been done. And I just feel like Mentor Minnesota is kind of at the forefront of all of these things. And by involving our organization, which works with disability in the Program Services Council, and really listening to what our needs and the needs of our mentors and mentees are, I feel like they're really listening, really looking to innovate and change and be leaders, but be leaders who are listening to people who are on the ground.
QUEERSPACE is a new organization we just launched in 2021. And in fall of 2020, I was still working full-time at another place and exploring the idea of designing and setting up a mentorship program for queer and trans youth. And was mostly doing it for an MBA program, and just thought, oh, this would be kind of a cool idea. And when I started talking to community members, I reached out to Mentor Minnesota because I figured that they would have good insights on who's providing mentorship to queer and trans youth. And I met with Sarah, and Sarah was like, no one is, and this is awesome, and we could help you, and we have free TA services, and we could help you develop a program manual. And honestly, something that was just an idea, it was kind of the first time that I thought, wow, I could really do this, this could actually happen. And so that was kind of my first encounter, and we've been really collaborative a lot over the last 3 years.
I was involved with some youth mentoring coalitions called YAVA, and then the Minneapolis Youth Trust, which preceded Mentor Minnesota. I then became the director at Kids N Kinship and continued my connection through Mentor Minnesota, benefiting from the resources and the connections to other people, and really saw it as a two-way street, something that I and my program greatly benefited from, but also had a commitment that we would contribute back to the efforts that the Mentor Minnesota agency was trying to do to connect programs and be a resource to other programs.
chance and luck have a lot to do with everything that happens. So believe it or not, Joellen Gonder-Spacek was putting on an event with the Mythbusters, and it was sold out, and I wanted to get my kids to go, being big Mythbusters fans, so I reached out to Joellen and asked her about the organization, and 5 minutes in, I was hooked on this being something I had to get involved in and was going to be passionate about. Found out that Bob Dayton was the chairman of the board. Bob is a long-term mentor of mine. I grew up with his children at Woodhill playing hockey and at Blake, and once I got the chance to talk to him about what he was doing and kind of where I come from and what I care about, it was, for a lot of reasons, an incredible board to get involved in. One of the best ones was, it isn't about just one organization. It's about spreading the arc of mentoring through corporations, through mentors, through mentees, helping build the strength of the space. And as a young person trying to get involved in a board, that was a pretty exciting thing, and also fits kind of my approach. So as I got more involved, especially once you meet Joellen Gonder-Spacek and then if you know Bob Dayton, what they'd done was incredible, and I then was lucky enough, I became the second chairman of the board a few years later, and have basically been involved ever since.
I work at the Division of Indian Work. I am the youth worker and volunteer coordinator there. I've been there for over 10 years now. I also have a society that I founded called the Young Women's Society, which is a group for young Native women. We do sisterhood mentorship, and we also bring awareness to missing and murdered Indigenous women. I was a mentor when I was maybe 24, but I didn't really understand the impact that that has because I wasn't really trained. It was just kind of like, I like this kid and I want to spend more time with them, you know. But now I understand its importance on a whole other level. I mean, I'm 32, I feel like I need a mentor at this point because I just see the impact that it makes on so many young people. So I think it really helps people to understand the importance of it.
About 20 years ago now, so very core to our history, Mentor Minnesota pioneered something called the Quality Mentoring Assessment Program, or QMAP. And this was a project that was designed after conversations with both mentoring programs and funders who said, funders would come to Mentor Minnesota and say, okay, who are the best mentoring programs? We'd like to fund people who are doing actual impactful work in your community. And mentoring programs would say, we want to know that we're actually making a positive impact on the youth in our community. How can we show that? And so Mentor Minnesota, utilizing resources from the National Mentoring Resource Center, which is a federal agency, developed something called QMAP, which helped programs assess how they were doing. And it started out actually as a very small, almost like a survey or a test, although it's not a test. It's more of a way to assess where you need to grow. But it asks questions like, are you screening mentors? Are you training mentors? Are you asking young people how they feel about their match? Small things that if you have that data as a mentoring organization can make a really big impact in the quality of the relationships that you're helping steward.
I was excited 2 years ago to join the Committee on Racial Equity, and so sitting on that committee allows me to not only bridge back to what's happening here in Minnesota, but then to be on part of a national committee where we really can begin to scale racial equity in a bigger way within the mentoring movement.
I think the biggest and I think most positive thing that has happened over these last 30 years is the way that we're centering equity and justice and inclusion and really trying to meet young people where they're at to help them really think about what is the journey they want to navigate and how do we as adults stand with them, stand next to them, and really walk that journey with them. I think those pieces that came with a lot of pain for a lot of communities all over the United States, a lot of pain for us individually and then collectively, in many ways I think will ultimately be a positive for young people in the ways that we adults think about how we should and how we want to show up for young people and centering those principles of equity and inclusion.
The other way that Kids in Kinship was involved in work that led towards some national efforts was we were invited to be a part of the LGBTQ pilot program, a part of the elements of effective practice that was set by National Mentor. So through our work and benefiting from other programs here in Minnesota, we came up with what were some good sound practices, policies, procedures that we could carry out that would work towards safe mentoring and inclusivity for our youth.
One of the other ways that I originally got involved with Mentor Minnesota was through their LGBTQ pilot group that Sarah hosted with Christian and Nia. And that was great because there were leaders from mentorship programs kind of all across the Twin City and Minnesota. And so I got to meet others who were doing mentorship and learning more from them. And it was just really beautiful to see how Sarah really is leading and was leading this, kind of whole initiative on LGBTQ plus inclusivity, and Minnesota being the first pilot. I feel like Sarah's just always like pushing all of our mentoring programs to take a step back and think about how to reduce barriers, how to be more inclusive, how to get more kids in and create more inclusive spaces.
The reason that Mentor Minnesota is important is because it's a way to bring the voices of many small not-for-profits together into a much stronger force. And then because of the way Minnesota is built, which I believe is really around these same ideas, right? That the corporate environment is very supportive of the community. It's just a thing that fits our culture. And almost always they'll talk about a mentor. They may call it a coach, they may call it a teacher, they may call it a parent, but they'll talk about that person who influenced their life, helped them out, and especially at bumps in the road, gave them guidance of where to go, right? We've all been mentees, and one of the challenges is to remind yourself to give back. That's what a mentor is to me.
There are so many things that are really profound memories for me. I think about the work that we did with some key partners, WCCO Television and 3M and the Star Tribune and Insight News, that resulted in thousands of adults being able to step up and get involved in mentoring. Later, WCCO Television actually won a Peabody Award for the various ways that they produced their deeper dive stories on mentor programs and on the lives of young people and mentors that were involved at that time.
The question that I like to ask other people, and I honestly reflect on this every day, is what is my vision for a healthy community? And I think about it when I'm biking down the street, and I think I want a place where young people can go different places. They have access to transportation, they have access to bikes, they feel safe on the street. I want a place where all young people can access quality education, where they feel like their interests and their goals and their drives are represented in the schools that they go to. I want them to have any opportunity to pursue a hobby that they want. And so for me, my vision for young people is to have a community in which they see themselves and they know that they can thrive and they can flourish.
I hope that autistic youth and other youth with disabilities can feel strong, can feel supported, can feel connected with their communities and feel happy about who they are. That's really important. And I hope for the general population that there's more disability awareness.
I just want to say kudos, congratulations, and I really look forward to further celebration as we enter the next 30 years.
Happy 30th anniversary, Mentor Minnesota. It's been amazing being a part of this organization, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks for having me. It's been a real honor to get to be part of this work. And I promise I wouldn't cry, but I just believe in it that much.
Congratulations, Mentor Minnesota, on 30 years. That is quite an achievement. You're an amazing organization, and I appreciate you, as does everyone at the Autism Mentorship Program, on the staff and the mentors and the mentees. Thank you.
To everybody who's been involved, I've been honored to be a part of this group, to have the chance to be a part of it. And anything I can do to help it going on, I'll help for the next 30 years.
congratulations on 30 years. That's a big accomplishment, and I hope we get to do this again in another 10 or 20 or 30 years again.
Happy anniversary, Mentor Minnesota. I am so honored to be part of this journey, and I'm really humbled by everyone who I've met along this journey who is helping celebrate with us. So happy birthday, Mentor Minnesota. Happy 30th.